everyone, I'm Simon Bridges and welcome to today's webinar on resilience skills brought to you in partnership with First Steps and the Auckland Business Chamber. Throughout our resilience skills series, we've been privileged to hear from some awesome speakers. Today, we have the honour of introducing another exceptional speaker whose insights and experiences I think are going to deeply resonate with all of us. I'm thrilled to introduce Steve Gurney. Steve is an adventurer, an inventor, and a motivator. He's a household name in New Zealand, an ex-professional adventure athlete turned professional motivational speaker and trainer. You'll probably know he won the Coast to Coast a record 9 times, raced mountain bikes for NZ at the World Champs twice. And he's got an engineering degree and invented a bike with wings. You never know, we may even talk about that. He's been poisoned by bat dung while racing in Borneo jungles, actually really serious, and nearly died. But he fought back to win the Coast to Coast 7 times more in a row. Nothing, I think we all know, goes to plan, where there are mountains, rivers, swamps, and wild animals involved. And Steve will share with us, because he knows more than anyone, the resilience lessons he's learned from all of that. Steve's also suffered through poor mental health and is happy to share some of the best tips he's gathered around that. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, team, listeners, viewers.
Really good to have you with us. We've seen each other a little bit lately, once randomly on Rangitoto Island, when I was pushing my kids uphill, or downhill maybe at that point actually, and in Queenstown. But, you've got as I said, an awesome story of resilience through some of the tough times. Can you give us a sense and, share a bit of that journey with us?
Well, I'll just start by saying that, the introduction was wonderful. Thank you, Simon. And so that's a bit of the story basically is I love adventure sports. So I love being out in the outdoors rather than inside watching TV on the sofa. I'd rather be out biking, climbing mountains. I really love whitewater kayaking,
Yep.
sea kayaking, that sort of stuff. So, you asked for a summary. It's basically, I got into this adventure sport in a racing sense. It's all very well going hiking and recreationally adventuring, but I met Robin Judkins, the founder of the Coast to Coast, when I was at university at the Whitewater University Kayak Club there, and he was hiring some boats, and he told me this the story, as he so enthusiastically does, about this event he was going to organise. Starts on the west coast of the South Island, finishes on the east coast, and in the middle, what is there, Steve? There's the main divide, the Southern Alps. You have to climb over Goat Pass. And I was immediately hooked by this testing yourself against the elements. It's like what is embedded in our DNA. We've evolved, or we've ended up, centuries ago, that was all we had. We didn't have technology. We were existing in the wilderness, and survival depended on your skills and ability and resilience. And so I think adventure sport and especially the racing appeals to many of us. And you'll see that type in the Coast to Coast, those guys who they're survivalists. Oh, that's not the right word, but they know that if their plane crashed in the mountains, they'd survive, because they've got the skills. It's MacGyver with Crocodile Dundee, that sort of combination, that ability to sort things out on the fly. And it really appealed to me as a young graduate engineer. To win this race, you had to be organized and you had to think tactfully and then learn the skills of whitewater kayaking and mountaineering and stuff like that. And so I was immediately hooked as a young 21-year-old. And since then, I've traveled the world. There's not just the Coast to Coast. I represented New Zealand at mountain biking a couple of times at the World Champs, but the one that really piqued my interest was adventure racing, which started in 1989 with the Raid de Gauloise. Some French people came here, French company came to organise this race. It was about a week long, and you had to do it in teams. In those days, it was teams of 5 people, and they had to stay together the whole time. So it was a champion team will always beat a team of champions sort of mentality. Those athletes not only had to have the skills, but also to be able to work together. And once again, that's a really good analogy for life, isn't it? So I was hooked on adventure racing, but it was one of those adventure races in 1996 that I got very, or 95 actually, I got very sick. I got leptospirosis, a disease. I caught it from bats in the Mulu caves in Borneo. And I was in intensive care on 3 life support machines. They called my dad from Christchurch to say, your son's going to die. If you want to say your farewells, come fly over and say goodbye to him now. Um, Clearly, I didn't die, but it taught me a
Did he
heap about.
fly over?
He flew over, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And another
I
friend
thought
of
you were
mine,
going to
Tina
say
von
he didn't bother. I don't know that my father, late father, would have, but anyway,
Yeah, right. And another,
sorry.
yeah, there's another good friend of mine, Tina von Pine. She came over as well. So, um, and there's a couple of Kiwis over there who diplomats for New Zealand. That was they looked after us as well. So there's a bit of a Kiwi contingent sort of making sure I survived. There was John Howard and Vivian Prince. They also they were in the race. They stayed behind, and I think it was through the help of those people that I survived. You know, the English. The language barrier wasn't too good, but they helped out a lot, and that is probably quite critical. So that was probably the biggest lesson in resilience that I got was having or being so close to death, you know, and you come back and realize, you know, I had something like a $96,000 hospital bill I had to find from somewhere, and the public rallied around to help a bit with that, and I, you know, spent my savings and spent a few years paying it off, and that taught. That's a really good lesson, you know. You think as kids, us kids who had to budget with our pocket money and you know weren't just handed things on a plate, and we learned some valuable stuff. And it's a bit like that with coming really close to death or being very ill or having your life threatened. You learn the value of stuff, and you know I've had lots of other things go wrong, of course, but that was the big lesson. And um, subsequent to that, the nephrologist, the kidney expert, you know, he said your kidneys have failed. You might as well. You're best to give up your sport, and not challenge your kidneys anymore. And that was another huge. It was like a red rag to a bull. You know, I said, no, I'm not going to give up my sport. So I had to find ways to get around the ill health and get back to top racing again. But that also brought on a whole lot of depression, really bad depression. It was suicidal for a couple of years. And that led me to a whole lot of reading and study and coaching and counseling, doing some courses on what is the meaning of life and you know what is the answer to that. So I've got quite a philosophical inquiring type mind, and I really enjoyed retrospectively. I enjoyed uh, climbing out of depression. At the time, it was horrible, of course, absolutely horrible. But I have now empathy for those people who have suicidal thoughts and dealing with the you know the black dog. And um, I can offer my stories. I can't tell people how to cure their version of it, but I'm very happy to share that you know my thoughts on that if it helps humanity, so or helps
Fantastic. And thanks so much. And we know you had a remarkable training regime and so on, but I mean, what's resilience mean to you, do you think? How would you kind of, at a rough sense, define that and its importance?
Yeah, good question. I like to, can I just change that a tiny bit and say
Absolutely.
adventure sport that I do that I've just described, you know, mountaineering and whitewater kayaking and rafting and climbing up and down rock faces and mountain biking and trekking through jungles and bush through the night, you know, 24/7 sort of thing for a few days at a time, you know, and coast to coast, you know, going from one coast to the other. So this is racing or not even racing, it's just out there doing an adventure sometimes in the wilderness. And one hallmark of that is nothing ever goes to plan. There's always something goes wrong, like you trip over and hurt yourself. You put your hand down and you sprain your wrist, or you um, cut your shins on a sharp rock or something like that, or you drop your food and you didn't realize it and you run out of food, or there's bad weather, or one member in your team gets sick. Um, uh, there's always something that goes wrong. And so the winners of these races, or the people who finish their adventure and succeed, are those who are able to pivot and come up with a plan B, C, M, N, O, X, Y, Z. You know, and that's the mark of resilience. The winners are the resilient ones who are able to, okay, put that behind you. Let's not dwell on it. What's another way we can do this? And I think that's why I like adventure sport as a good analogy or an example of what resilience is. And so that's an easy one to see. When you're looking at something from the outside, it's easy to get a perspective on it. But when it's your own life, it's different. Everything seems so much bigger and harder to deal with. So it's easy. That's why we like analogies and metaphors, is because it's a way of learning from something else and how to apply the simple things, the basics of resilience to my own life. Uh, to me, resilience, I think it's important. You start with one small step. It's just too overwhelming to try and solve the whole thing in one go. You need to start with one small step, and that's why analogies are good as well. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I mean, I suppose everyone in your old game has got a physical fitness, but it's that mental resilience and that pivoting, and that sort of adaptability that marks out a champion. I mean, you've been really candid with us. You had really bad suicidal depression.
Mm. And I'm still
Uh,
prone to that, Simon. So
yeah,
it's a personality type, I suppose. Us A types, there's a lot of people who'll be watching your series here. It's fantastic, by the way. Well done. This is making a big difference to people. Thank you for taking the effort to interview people and get their stories, because when you think about it, humanity, that's how learning is passed on, through stories. It's not through bullet points on a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, that's one way of doing it, but the real longevity, the real nitty gritty stuff is passed on through stories. And we still see that in indigenous cultures today. And that's a value that us whiteys need to learn, I think, is
yeah, no,
the
that's
value of
right.
storytelling. And so you've enabled that. Thank you very much.
No, no, appreciate it. And I was just sort of, thank you. I think it is important, and it's important, as you say, that the type A personalities don't get left behind. We might think that this is for someone else, but all types can face these mental health and resilience issues. I suppose, you mentioned stories. I mean, what you might have a story, or it might be that you just can think of some strategies or practices you've used to kind of build up your mental health, your well-being, your resilience, that you think others might in potentially be able to apply.
Okay. Yeah, we've only got a few minutes to talk today, haven't we? I could talk for hours about this. Can I go back to one of the
I know you could. You are almost as good at talking as you are at extreme sports. And I mean
oh,
that as a compliment. I don't mean that. That's great. It's fantastic. It's important.
oh, thanks. No, I enjoy speaking. I'm actually introverted. By nature I'm really shy, but I've learned anyway. That's another story.
Yeah.
But can I go back to this resilience thing? So I've got a very inquiring mind, as we touched on just now. I'm an A-type personality. I like to achieve. I'm a perfectionist. And that's part of what causes my depression, I think, is that I always want to get everything solved and sorted and ticked off. And so my inquiry mind is taking me back to, well, what causes all this? What's the genesis of it? Where did it all start? And I think um, I'll take one aspect of that. I think as a kid, I was brought up with, as many of us are, with fairy tales and movies with happy endings and Walt Disney stuff. And humans love to have a happy ending. I saw that humans love to have stories finish every happily ever after. And so
Yeah, I get
the
I get annoyed by movies where they have this sort of pathetic sad ending when they could have had the happy one. But anyway, that's
but there are good points, Simon. Now that's exactly what the human brain wants, is that they want to feel that people are happy in the end. And that's an unrealistic expectation. So I think it's not resilience shows. I mean, how do we say this? Life, like I was said earlier on, is never goes to plan, and the movies make out that it does, and stories like Cinderella make out that it always ends. Prince meets princess happily ever after, and I think that's not helpful for us to teach that to our kids, because they end up expecting life to be like that. And I certainly have suffered from that. And that's what caused my depression, I think, is that sort of thinking that if I work hard enough, finally I'll get there. And there is no there. That life will always, till the day we die, and after that as well, our following generations will always have things that don't work out. And life is a series of compromises and finding a happy medium in the middle, I suppose. Either I use that happy word again, but it's about finding another way of doing it. And It may not be perfect, but at least it's workable and life goes on. And sometimes life doesn't go on. Sometimes we die. In fact, we all die. So it's an acceptance of that. And we don't accept death really, most of us, until we're on death's door. And I think that's one of the lessons I got from leptospirosis, is that we just have to accept that stuff happens. And once we truly accept that, then we're fine. So Eckhart Tolle talks about that. He's a famous author who wrote books like The Power of Now and A New Earth, and he's written a few books. But he talks about the disease that we have, like I've just mentioned. I'll be happy once I get this, or once I get that, or once I achieve that. And that's the life of an adventure sport athlete like me, as a perfect or any perfectionist is, or any top athlete. I think is they're striving for this win, and often it's because we're an A-type personality trying to find or get to there, and I won 9 coast to coast, and it was really, really annoying that I didn't get my 10th. That's because of this A-type perfectionist, and the secret to me was to accept that nine's fine, one's fine, and stop trying to find this elusive happy getting to nirvana or to the answer to the end. So Eckhart Tolle talks about, of course, if we're waiting to the future to be happy, that means we can't be happy now. And so the trick is to be more in the present moment. So I think that's one of the things that this quest for perfection has taught me. There is no such thing, and that's the secret. One of the secret parts of resilience is to accept that there's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a challenge for me too, living in the now, often results focus down the track. And that's why I'm going to take my children today, because it's a beautiful day in Auckland, later on this sort of early evening, to this new pool down in the waterfront.
Oh,
On
really?
the sea. The mayor has done a new pool with lanes, and we're going to jump in that. It's a sea pool, a bit like they're having a lot of Aussie, at Bondi and so on. Anyway, that is another story, but because we need to be present focused, not always sort of thinking about future stuff. Um, you're actually, we're just talking before we were on air, you're a business person, and you just give us, I don't know if you've got anything on that, but how you sort of in that context, stay resilient, keep up, and yourself and for colleagues or staff around you as well. What any thoughts around that in a business context, resilience and
Yeah,
well-being?
that's another big topic. I'm not an expert on business. I'm, an athlete by my past, but now that I'm working more and more in the corporate world, it's becoming more and more obvious to me that the secret to success in business, I mean, it's manyfold, but one of the key things is to employ staff that share the same values as the business. So there's alignment. So when stuff goes wrong, that there's enough buffer there that people are keen and willing and passionate enough to sort things out and work through that and find a better solution. And it's the same with a person setting goals. Let's say I had a goal to win a marathon or whatever. Um, the key to it is to make sure that goal aligns with my purpose on the planet or my mission in life, if you knew what that was, or have an idea of what it is. You don't have to, I mean, it's a really hard thing to get a really definite answer of what is my mission in life, but get an idea of what really matters. Another way to do that is list off your values in life that, the 10 top values or the 5 top values that you'd live life by, and check that what you're doing, the goals that you're setting, the work that you're doing, the company you work for, or the colleagues you choose, that they all share the similar sort of values. And that way you'll get cohesion and you'll get a champion team and you'll have the resilience to work through things that are challenges and get around hurdles or over hurdles.
Yeah.
And when people or employees aren't aligned with values, they give up easily, or they leave, or they're grumpy, or they're not pleasant to work with. And so that to me is one of the founding, most important things um, about business is checking you share the same passion.
Actually, quite a challenging task, that trying to think of your 3 or 4 or 5 top values. And I mean, at one level, people say, "Oh, well, it's acting with integrity, this, that, and the other. But actually, if you're really being honest with yourself and thinking that through, that's a challenging task. You as a
Well, can
you,
I just say
yeah,
one thing that's common, research shows very clearly, is that people don't stay in a job for the money.
no,
They stay at a job because they feel they're making a difference to the world,
yeah,
that they feel appreciated. Well, those are the two top ones. We'll just stick on those for now. And so that's the important thing, is to make sure you're, as a manager, you're valuing your people in that way. And now's a perfect time. Um, when things are tough, the best time is to show people's appreciation. It can be just a simple, over coffee, standing up and giving a wee speech and saying, "Look, Fred, I really appreciate your dedication, and John, I appreciate that you turn up really early on time every time, and attention to detail over here. Just acknowledging people for what they do and how they contribute to the company. I think that's really, really key to it."
yeah, no, absolutely. You as an elite sports guy will have been, I'm sure, a personal regime guy. Said you get up at this time, you do this, that, and the other thing. The question is though, today, what are you doing now to prioritize your own well-being and how you sort of, I suppose you're talking before about balance actually, and balance your professional, personal, wider responsibilities.
Right. So there's the basics, and I know this is going to sound really boring, but we
No,
so often
boring's
overlook the
important.
basics. It's like um, sleep, getting enough sleep. It's really easy to get caught in for example, a Facebook rabbit hole. Just before I go to sleep, I'll have a quick look on here. Next thing,
Don't do it.
it's midnight, and you think, oh man, I'm not only going to get 6 hours sleep tonight, and it's so easy, so many distractions nowadays, and you just got to stick to your discipline and get good sleep. Another one, of course, exactly like that, is food. It's so easy to eat crap food now. Start anything's in a package is basically not what this machine
You
here.
mean like the packet of chips that someone gave us that somehow I started eating at about 9:45 last night? Why did I do it, Steve?
I know, because it tastes
I
good.
felt bad all night during my sleep and lack of sleep.
Well,
Anyway, sorry.
this is the thing, that human DNA is wired in the early days when survival was tougher. Never in the whole of humankind have we had plentiful food like we have now. Normally, food was scarce, and we'd have intermittent fasting was a natural thing. It was raining and it was a
Because
storm.
you hadn't been able to catch the rabbit.
Exactly. You couldn't go out and find the food, so I'm going hungry for a day until the storm's gone. And the body rebuilt itself in that time. And it's really important that it could do that. Nowadays, we don't give it a chance. We're shoving stuff down our face the whole time because it's readily available. So we have to have discipline for that. And also, hardwired in our DNA is the salt and the fat that we find in chips. And these manufacturers know this. And they say, oh, what foods do people crave? But the thing is, we're not doing it in moderation, we're doing it in excess. So we need to think, well, actually, what is this body designed to do? It's designed to eat stuff out of the ground, off the tree, freshly caught, not out of a packet. And so I think
Just want
everything
to
in
say, having
moderation.
said that, look, this is my lunch
There you
tip.
go.
Okay, that's it. That's the sum total, right?
There you
Okay.
go.
That's why I go home and eat chips at 9:45.
Well, you've got to balance that with a bit of protein and some other stuff as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So
Don't worry,
fruit, fruit is
there'll be
actually
more
high
than
in
enough protein at
fruit's
some
high in
point.
sugar, but it's also balanced with fiber, so that's quite good. But you can't live on just fruit. You have some veggies as well and some bit of protein. So what do I talk about? Sleep, nutrition, recovery is really important. You work really hard during the day. It's time to you need like an athlete. We go into a hard session, run 40 Ks at whatever pace, and we're knackered at the end of it. That's the whole idea. We challenge our muscle fiber, but then we need to allow 2 or 3 days for that fiber to rebuild stronger. If we don't do that in life, work really hard and allow time to recover, like you said, going to the pool with the kids tonight, that'd be fantastic. What a nice way to recover, and allow your brain to come right, and to recover. So these are the basics, and there's also social connection. This is all really common sense research that's important to have a sense of community as well, and time with people in your neighborhood or people who are in your clubs, or family time, that sort of stuff as well. So there's the basics to resilience, I believe, is just get that foundation right. And if I'm ever in doubt, I just think back to, what are the foundations that our forebears would have had, and the nutrition and the sleep and all that sort of stuff is for millennia, that's what the human body has been designed. It's only in the last 2 generations that we've had the Industrial Revolution. Things have really rapidly changed, and this body can't evolve, or this brain can't evolve quick enough to keep
Totally, yeah.
up.
It's the simple stuff that matters, isn't it? And I just
Mm.
on the food. I mean, that someone said, I think it was Michael Pollan, was it, writer on food, that if it wasn't, if you couldn't eat it 200 years ago, it was probably not a very good thing, right? So
That's great. That's
yeah,
brilliant. Yeah,
that's
really good.
anyway. But that's just a little nugget for me. We've talked about you a lot, and you've given us a lot of good nuggets. I mean, as a final sort of question, if there was one message, no pressure, but if there was one message you could give those listening today about resilience, what do you reckon that would be? You might have already given it, but
I have really, and yeah, I would like to reiterate, resilience is a mental thing. It's not, I mean, the physical part is obviously, it's obvious, but resilience is merely a mindset. And so you get the basics right there, and it's understanding what's actually true. Very easy for us to get wound up in the meaning of things and making up stories about why this happened, what that happened. Actually ask what is actually true. Uh, and when I'm suffering mental health, I've got to step back and think, well, what really matters? What's actually true? Rather than trying to solve things by reasoning, it's got to be just basic black and white truths. I think
yeah,
that's
people construct stories oftentimes, don't they, for why something's happened that may not be accurate. As you said, if you think about, and my mother passed away this year, difficult things. That is part of life and death, and
mm,
and so we just, as you say, need to confront the basics of those things. That's
mm.
probably a bit of a deep and heavy way to end, but
Well, actually, can we lighten it a
yeah,
little bit? My second
yeah,
one would be communication. Have very good communication with your people, and that's sometimes really tough, to be honest. And I much prefer someone to be upfront, blunt, and 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 I know exactly where I am then, and we can talk things through then, and we can solve. Okay, where does our Venn diagram cross over in the middle? What do we actually need that we can both agree on? And I think communication is often overlooked here, that people are a bit scared to tell the truth. They don't want to hurt people's feelings, and that's bullshit. You're going to hurt people's feelings more if you don't tell them the truth and they find out later on. And it's because here's my thing is I don't like to put something off. If I've got a gripe with someone or I've got a comment to make, I want to do it as soon as I can and get it off my chest. Otherwise, it just goes round and round in my head for the next few days. And at night, especially, ruminate on things and it becomes worse and the problem becomes bigger. And it's the same for mental health. This is very important for mental health. If something's bugging you, reach out straight away before that little wee snowball. You've seen the ad, the little wee tiny drop of snow becomes a huge snowball. And I think the early, honest, brutally honest, not brutal, but bluntly honest is important. And I think one of the key things here I learned in NLP from Richard Bolstad was when you've got a gripe with someone, there's three things. One, what's the concrete facts that both people could agree on? E.g., when I come home and I see clothes all over the floor, it means I feel embarrassed to bring my friends home because the place, in my opinion, is too messy. And the consequences that I feel really upset. So, what's the concrete facts? So that's I think is the most important thing is in communication. Don't do, oh, when you do this, you naughty person. That's accusational. But if you have just the concrete facts in all communication that everyone can agree on, then there's no argument. It's just black and white and it's simple. You can sort out solutions without accusations or blame.
yeah, fantastic. I think I don't know that New Zealanders are very good with sort of those blunt truths. We circle around things. I heard a good one though, Steve, which I think is sort of the same thing. But what we need is I've just written it down here, is it's not brutal truth, it's radical candor, right?
Ooh, nice.
So because people deserve that, right? But as you say, it's the positioning of it. It's not you always blah, which
Hmm.
I can be reasonably good at. It's as you say, more just that radical candor. We've got these facts, and this is what that means, and what are you going to do about it? So
And
yeah,
the radical facts have to be actually true. You can't have them radically
correct.
exaggerated.
Radical perspectives.
Yeah.
It's a bit different. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, fantastic.
Yeah, it's still pretty heavy way to end the conversation, isn't it? But
Oh, that's right. Well,
we'll
it is,
we'll
it
leave
is
it on a very light note that we all have the same problems. We're humans and sharing it lightens the load. We all have challenges, whether we show it out front or we hide it inside. We all have problems with resilience and things going wrong and wanting life to be better than it actually is. And so if we share that and talk about it with our mates and or with anyone, then we get that connection that makes us feel a lot better, and it makes us it's called empathy and rapport. And I think that's really important that we share that.
Totally. For others and for yourself, hey, you've really shared and lightened the load for a lot, I'm sure, with this, Steve. So we greatly appreciate it. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in today and for engaging in this important conversation. We hope you haven't found it too heavy, but you found it actually in the end uplifting and helpful. Remember to visit firststeps.nz, firststeps.nz for more helpful material. Thank you for being here today, especially you, Steve, but our viewers as well. And we look forward to bringing you more webinars in our series.
Good on you, Simon. Keep it up.
Cheers, mate.